This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets. Oil prices slid for a second day in a row on Friday, pressured by an unexpected rise in U.S. crude and fuel inventories while investors took profits after the benchmarks touched 7-year highs earlier in the week. However, both crude benchmarks rose for a fifth week in a row, gaining around 2% this week. Prices were up more than 10% so far this year on concerns over tightening supplies. Brent futures fell 49 cents, or 0.6%, to settle at $87.89 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate, WTI, crude fell 41 cents, or 0.5%, to settle at $85.14. Earlier in the week, both Brent and WTI rose to their highest levels since October 2014.
A Japanese-Australian venture producing hydrogen from brown coal is set to start loading its maiden cargo on the world's first liquid hydrogen carrier on Friday, in a test delayed by nearly a year because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Suizo Frontier, built by Japan's Kawasaki Heavy Industries, KI, arrived Australia this week from Kobe, following a longer trip than the expected 16 days as the ship dodged bad weather and rough seas, said a spokesperson for the Hydrogen Energy Supply Chain, HESC, venture. The ship is scheduled to head back to Japan in about a week. Led by KI, HESC is a $500 million Australian dollars coal to hydrogen project backed by Japan and Australia as a way to switch to cleaner energy and cut carbon emissions.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
OPEC Plus compliance with oil production cuts rose to about 122% in December, two sources from the producer group told Reuters, indicating that some members continue to struggle to raise their output. The December figure compares with 117% in November. The International Energy Agency said this week that the group missed its production targets by 790,000 barrels per day, BPD, in December as members like West African producers Nigeria and Angola struggled to raise output.
China has offloaded nearly 4 million barrels of Iranian crude oil into state reserve tanks in the southern port city of Zhanjiang over the past few weeks, a trade source and ship tracking specialist Vortexer Analytics said on Thursday. The move comes as world powers are locked in tough negotiations with Iran to revive a 2015 nuclear deal that will include the lifting of U.S. sanctions on Iranian oil. The former Trump administration pulled out of the deal and reimposed sanctions. Iran, which sits on the world's fourth-largest oil reserves, relies heavily on oil revenue, but sanctions have prevented it from pumping at anywhere near capacity since 2018.
Next, we have the top news in metal.
The United States and the European Union have downgraded their dispute at the World Trade Organization over steel and aluminium tariffs applied by former U.S. President Donald Trump in 2018 and subsequent EU retaliation, documents filed at the WTO show. The two sides agreed in October to suspend their tariffs and work on a deal to combat dirty production and overcapacity in the industry in the next 2 years, with China clearly the focus of their attention. Each agreed then to pause the WTO panels deliberating over the Trump tariffs and the subsequent EU countermeasures, which took the form of tariffs on a range of U.S. products including whiskey, powerboats and Harley-Davidson motorbikes.
London Metal Exchange, LME, Chief Executive Matt Chamberlain will step down in April. The exchange said on Friday, in a surprise move after 5 years at the helm of the world's largest market for industrial metals. Chamberlain, a former banker who has been at the LME for 9 years, has taken the top job at digital asset custody services provider Komeinu, his new employer said. Komeinu, launched in 2020, is a joint venture between Japanese bank Nomura Holdings, digital asset security firm Ledger and digital asset investment house CoinShares. It safeguards about $5 billion in bitcoins and other cryptocurrency assets on behalf of financial institutions. We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector. Indonesia's plan to limit palm oil exports that has driven prices to record highs is likely to make leading importer India shift to substitute soy and sunflower oils, potentially capping the market's rally, industry officials and analysts said. India can also increase its palm oil shipments from Indonesia's rival supplier Malaysia, but it is unlikely to be able to meet the shortfall, the officials said. Indonesia is drafting a plan to limit palm oil shipments to tame domestic cooking oil prices, a senior industry official said on Wednesday.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.